Top five, top five, top five.
So, topical back with another video. I'm Strange Wang. He is Nate. Today we're doing top 5 documentaries. Documentaries don't get talked about enough. And looking at my list, I haven't seen enough documentaries, I don't think. Because my first two are kind of cheating, but they're still documentaries of some sort. Okay. So we're going to roll with it. Before we get in this, we'll tell you about our social media, where you can find it, and other things.
If you scroll down to the description box below, pop it open, you'll find links to our social media accounts. We also have links to our Coffee account and our Patreon account. If you like some good bonus content, then check out the Patreon for sure. And if you are interested in financially helping our channel out, then we also have the thanks button right there on YouTube. If you're not going to do any of those things, which is understandable, then subscribe because it's free. You still help us out, and it doesn't cost you anything.
My number 5 is going to be the J. Cole 4 Your Eyes Only documentary. I love rap music. I love J. Cole. J. Cole is more of a rapper of... He gives his opinions on thoughts and things that are in the public right now. He doesn't talk about guns and money and jewelry and all that stuff. He can. He does that sometimes. But for this album, it's very personal. It's very about the community and what he's seeing in it and things of that matter. So to see him going around talking to people of the community and things like that, and his thought process on making my favorite album by him, fucking score for me. It's a YouTube documentary. It's only 15 minutes long, I believe. So I think it still counts. So that's going to be on number 5. Number 4, might be a reach. But if your favorite film is Lawrence Arabia, they have the same runtime, I would assume. And number 4 for me is going to be The Last Dance, the Bulls documentary.
Oh, okay.
So good.
Yeah, I mean, I have a series on mine. I'm not opposed to it.
Okay.
But that is absolutely a documentary.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Well, documentaries, you think of like series, movie, whatever. Yeah. But so good. You get to learn so much about the Bulls.
Think about that. Yeah.
You get to learn so much about the team, not only Jordan, Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman is very interesting to me.
Clearly! No debating!
So to learn his story was very fun and entertaining. And just the whole team, you get a little bit about him, and then Jordan's personal life, and then he goes to play golf. It fills in that space for me for Space Jam. So to me, this was a must-watch, glued to the screen. I don't even like sports that much. So congratulations.
Yeah. So my number 5 is Exit Through the Gift Shop, which is, it might actually be a mockumentary, but we don't know. So if you are familiar with Banksy, the street artist or whatever, so he made this movie, but the movie is about a guy who just kind of wakes up one day and decides that he wants to be like Banksy. So he goes out, starts doing all this street art. It shows how he does it, explains all of it. It kind of documents like his rise to people recognizing him until he gets to the point where he actually has like a gallery where people are paying like a boatload of money. But it's also kind of like just talking about the stupidity that people are willing to pay that much money for like a brick with a rat spray painted on it with a stencil.
Yay, capitalism!
Right? But the part that's interesting about it is that there is a lot of evidence that seems to point to... So Banksy works really hard to like keep his face, and nobody's supposed to know who he is, right?
That's right, Knight. That's right.
And at this point in time, now there's like a bunch of photos where people are pretty sure they've gotten pictures of him and stuff.
Motherfucker Bigfoot.
He kind of is. When this came out, none of that had happened yet. So there was a lot of speculation and a fair amount of evidence to suggest that like the main character in this movie is actually Banksy himself, and that he made all of this as just kind of this, because he's very political. So he just made the movie to kind of point out how stupid people are and how they'll consume stuff. So the whole thing might actually be a massive farce. And with how weird the main character is, I wouldn't be surprised if it was, but it is really, really interesting nonetheless. Number 4 for me is Restrepo. I don't know. Do you know what that is?
I don't even think that's a word.
Oh, it is.
You made that up?
It was someone's last name. He was a combat medic. But anyways, I have lots of like fluctuating opinions about the military and things like that. But Restrepo is actually documenting this one specific platoon's time in Afghanistan. And it gives just like a really good picture into what being over there was like, in that there are massive periods of boredom where they're not doing anything, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere you were in a firefight fighting for your life and there's mortar shells going off everywhere. So getting to see like that live documented, like, it's not like a reporter over there talking about war footage or things like that, but it just shows I like things that actually show the horror of war. Whether that is because that is something that you find really badass and interesting, or it's something you want to see because it shows how actually awful war really is. Pick or choose. This documentary shows it for like what it really is and all of its grittiness and nastiness, while also making these young men look like complete and total badasses and what they went through. So that's my number 4.
Number 3 for me is going to be the Rosin Fall of ECW. ECW is a wrestling company. I am a fan of professional wrestling. So this hardcore, in-your-face, blood, guts, but still they had the Japanese and they bring in the Canadians and like New Japan style of wrestling, pure wrestling, technical wrestling, and how this amalgamation changed wrestling forever basically. Because WWE, WWF at the time, WCW, they took it and it was like, all right, he's over. Fans love these people. We're going to take them and pay them more money than you can. And then they're doing the hardcore matches and then the technical wrestling like WCW with New Japan, bringing those guys in as well. Things like that. And it shows the impact that company had on the business. And they had the freedom to do what they wanted to, for better or for worse. And that's fun. But you also get like the behind the scenes of fucking New Jack snorting coke, and then he jumped off a 20-foot balcony.
That's right, I said it.
But he always snorted coke. The only difference was he jumped off the balcony this time. Crazy fucking stuff.
Yeah.
So it's just a little inside of the wrestler lifestyle, especially for the hardcore trash garbage wrestling some people prefer it as. Incredible story and very entertaining to a wrestling fan. Number 2 is also going to be another wrestling one. Not hardcore and trashy, but golden. Ric Flair, the Ric Flair story. After he retired, WWE came out with this documentary. Ric Flair, one of the best stories of all time. One of the most interesting character arcs of all time. You have Ric Flair getting into the business, then I'm really fucking good at this. The Ric Flair persona becomes life. The limousine riding, jet flying, kiss Dylan, Willow Dylan, son of a gun thing. That's him now. That's his personality. Him and the Four Horsemen, they're so over. He's riding on private jets, alligator shoes, the whole 9. Late 70s, 80s, he's up here. He's on, as he would say, Space Mountain. You know what I'm saying? And then when different people come in charge, you're too old, you need to change, things like that. He lost his confidence. Shell of a man. WCW gets bought by WWF. He gets with Triple H. Triple H, big time wrestler, top of his game, no pun intended at the time. You're fucking Ric Flair.
Man, this dude's the GOAT.
You were my favorite wrestler. And like you look at rap culture now, like bro, people take woo Ric Flair drip, go woo on a, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say the Pusha T line. There's a bad word in it, but he was basically like, you're a shell of a man. Like you're my hero, and this is how I got to meet my hero. And then 2000s, he became Ric Flair again. Through the help of Triple H, and it's about this overall. Like it's like a movie. This man, all the confidence in the world, a king even in a sense, felt like nothing.
Yeah.
And then he felt like somebody, and then retired, and it was one of the most beautiful, heartwarming things in wrestling history. And that's where the documentary ends. And I wish that's where his career ended, because he kept starting back and retiring. He's got a match
He Brett Favre'd it.
Yeah, he has a match, and dude's like 80s.
Yeah.
Late 70s, 80s, and it's like probably a bit much. It's probably like mid to late 60s, early 70s, but
Sure.
still, it's like, god damn, dude, please retire. But he loves it so much, so even now the story continues, and it's like, dude, you just got re-famous because the Migos and rap, and now you're like back doing this, and it's just like, it's basically Citizen Kane as a wrestler.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Beautiful thing.
Yeah. So my number 3 is the only like docu-series on my list. It's the Night Stalker, subtitled "A Hunt for a Serial Killer."
Very, very good.
Which, man, it's not even just like, so serial killers, super interesting, very popular in culture right now, for better or worse.
It's debatable.
But I really appreciated this specific documentary because it was actually about the investigation. It wasn't about trying to create this intrigue about the awful things that this guy did or who he was as a person or his psyche. It definitely touches on all those things. But they're specifically interviewing the detectives who worked on this case, what they had to do to track him down, following all these leads. all that kind of stuff. Like, this is when forensics was still a baby, basically. So, they're really having to go from they literally identified this guy and tracked him down basically because he had this one oddly specific shoe that had this really specific tread on it. So it's just incredibly fascinating, but the way that they also tell it with the visuals they use, this kind of thumping 80s synth pop beat that they use for the intro and the outro, it just it does a good job of invoking emotion. It shows the toll that it took on the victims of the families of the people that this guy killed. It shows the toll that it took on these detectives' lives and their personal lives as well. But it also just shows how happy and proud they were to finally be able to put an end to this. And the coolest thing is just how he ended up getting caught, because they got the information out there and literally just a neighborhood full of people were just fuck this dude, and just cornered him and beat the shit out of him before the cops got there.
You don't brush your teeth and you kill people, stomp his ass out.
Yeah, so it's really fascinating. It's a Netflix original, so it's always going to be on there. We definitely recommend checking that out. Number 2, also a Netflix movie, is called 13th, which is about the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. So it basically is kind of tracking how slavery ended in the United States and things like that. But the after effects that still exist to a certain degree. So it is a documentary. Filmmakers have an agenda. Obviously, they're going to spin it a certain way. If they spin it in a way that you don't like it, that's okay. You can understand that there is still a lot of factual information within this documentary that is still indisputably true. And also, they had an agenda. Personally, I'm fine with their agenda in the film, but I just found it incredibly educational. Learned a lot about the United States prison system, how some certain laws came into place, how things like homeowners associations are still affecting impoverished communities and things like that. And it's also the fact that I seem to always remember this from this is that out of every person who is incarcerated in the world, 1/4 of them, and that was based on either a late 2000s or early 2010 study, so the numbers could have shifted. But the study that they used, which is just a census, it's not something you can mess up. Out of every prisoner in the world, 1/4 of them are in the United States. So it's why are we putting so many more people in prison than everyone else? Is it because we have that many criminals here? Is it because we are tougher on criminals here? Or is it because some of our laws are actually a little bit unfair and maybe you shouldn't do 10 years for selling weed?
It's a lot of years.
Yeah.
No one's the same.
Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
You're going to watch this if you haven't already, and you're just going to, your heart's going to be so warm and fuzzy, your eyes are going to sweat. There's multiple times, I was so full of joy and happy that I just cried because of how good this person was.
Yeah.
And they talked about, well, did he do this thing, trying to negative...
Put some sort of spin on his image.
So, as a filmmaker, when it comes to documentaries, you are responsible for the conversation, and they put that conversation in the film.
Yeah.
It was he did all these great things to make he was the best person in the world, this, that, and the third. He had his own trials and tribulations within himself, but he chose to be positive. And if you think he did these things, well, guess what? There it is. It's in the documentary as well.
Yeah.
I remember watching this in a theater, an art theater, so it's a bit smaller, a bit more emotional, but you still got about 50, 60 people in that theater. And just sitting in a room and smiling and crying all together and watching one of the most beautiful things ever be put on a screen before is something special that it's hard to put into words.
Yeah.
So.
A lot of documentaries are about drawing attention and pointing out facts to a lot of very negative things that are going on, which is good. We need to be informed. But I think that documentaries like Won't You Be My Neighbor are equally important because we also need to be reminded that there is in fact just good in the world and really there are good people. And this guy was one of them. He was a Christian, but not
stereotypical.
Yeah, not he did not, if he met a Muslim, whatever, you're my, he was their brother. That's just how this guy was. He was exactly the way that it should be. So it's not like there aren't things that people couldn't disagree with Mr. Rogers on, but if you disagreed with him, he still just loved the shit out of you, and that's incredible. I saw it twice in the same theater that he is talking about. I normally, if both times I saw it, theater was packed. Normally, if I'm in a packed theater watching an emotional film, I tend to not feel that film as emotionally because I am just aware that there are so many other people around me. This documentary just absolutely smashed through that wall and was like, nah, dude, you cried in front of everybody. And then you're going to go see it again, knowing what's going to happen, and you're going to cry in front of everybody again. So, like, in terms of evoking emotion while also just casting this absolutely bright orb of goodness into the world, this is like a must-watch documentary.
Must watch. Heard from Southern Topical. Tell us your thoughts and opinions down in the comment section below. Scroll back up, hit the like button, share the video, and subscribe.
It's not a game, it's a rich thing.